And now, the SleepHawk Worldwide Podcast. Here are your hosts, Brandon Staton and Tyler Hansbrough.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the SleepHawk Worldwide Podcast. This is Sleep Dog, return from my journey, the Big Hawk.
What's up, everybody? You might hear my AC kicking on. Got it on 78, hit 79, turned it right back down to 78. But you know what? We've got a great podcast. Excited to be in the studio with Sleep Dog. We've got a lot of action to talk about. Some Tar Heels on the move, and I'm looking forward to it.
Can't wait. So we'll get into it. We got Harrison Ingram got drafted. Armando Bacot, Cormac Ryan signed contracts. And last week's NBA draft, LeBron James' son, Bronny, in case you're hiding on a rock, he got drafted. We'll talk about that. Jared McCain. The Duke Blue Devils got drafted to Philadelphia. That's an interesting destination. We'll talk about that. And also an interesting destination as the story unfolds is Kyle Filiposwki going to Utah Jazz. Another just mind bender there. And if we don't wander our way through 1,000 other topics, we might get to Jamarcus Russell stealing $74,000 from his high school team. But speaking of air conditioning, dude, we're having the opposite problem. I know Sleep Dog keeps this. We had this conversation last week, which no one listened to, by the way. You guys got to subscribe. By the way, we got to start saying this. You guys got to subscribe to the YouTube channel, okay, people?
Yeah, please, guys.
Oh my gosh, this is how we feed our families these days.
Man.
Gosh, 406 of you loyal listeners here. But all the rest of you, I know, aren't subscribed. Yeah, dude, my thermostat. We come back from vacation. Two things. One, we had this girl here watching our dogs. We have 2 chocolate labs. Okay, asked her to water the plants. Okay, just water the plants. These plants, I don't even know how to describe how little water they've had. They're vibrant, thriving plants when I leave. And dude, I'm at the age now. Dude, this is what I live for. These plants. I got basil growing on the front porch. Okay. Little dillweed. All right. Some snapdragon. Got a lot of stuff growing in the front flower bed. Just redid the whole flower bed. Put 2 hydrangeas or gardenias. I always get those confused. One of them over there. Dude, she didn't water anything. And it's all dead. Grass is dead and everything. So,
oh man,
shout out to that
pissed.
Dog watcher. Yeah, well, I ain't too happy about it. And then you go inside and then AC doesn't work.
At least let the dog piss on the plants. Give it some type of hydration.
Yeah, I mean, kill 2 birds with 1 dog. You know? Said kill all my plants with no water. Anyway, well,
I'm sorry to hear that, Sleep. Plants make a huge difference. I'm looking at putting the money tree here in my living room. Got
a money tree. Money tree's still alive. Yeah. Indoor plants. Yeah. Succulent still alive. Highly recommended. Oak tree out front still alive. Hard to kill that thing at this point. Like seeds that we will watch grow. Good segue there. Harrison Ingram got drafted by the Spurs. Great destination. So he was the only Tar Heel drafted in the 2nd round. And then Armando and Cormac Ryan both signed deals subsequently. Armando with the Jazz, so he'll probably be better than Filiposwki. And then Cormac Ryan with OKC. So first things first, Harrison Ingram. I think we've both talked a lot about him over the last year. Let me back up just a second. I think by all accounts, it's very, very, very light draft class this year. I couldn't tell you. Like, usually I know pretty much the lottery, and always, like, you see a guy get drafted. Oh, I know that guy, or I've seen him play, or what have you. Dude, I knew maybe 5 people in the entire draft this year. So it was thin. Harrison Ingram going 2nd round picks. I mean, it is what it is. They don't pan out that often. I don't think they're very rarely are they coveted by teams for any reason other than, trade chips, it seems like. But Ingram going to the Spurs strikes me as interesting. I mean, I think he's a value guy, he's a high IQ guy. He's been in college 4 years, 5 years, 4 years, I think. Going to the Spurs with Popovich, athletic guy, plays defense, got Wembanyama on his team. Like, they got that other kid. I don't know, man. I could see him potentially making it, man. And I mean, of course, you never know, but the numbers tell you like it's a long shot. You get past the first round. But I got high hopes for Harrison Ingram.
Yeah, and Sleep, I want to talk about why I think this is a good fit for the Spurs. First of all, obviously with Wembanyama, I don't think Harrison Ingram is going to be put in a position where he's going to have to create and find his own shot. I mean, you don't draft a guy in the second round to do that. Let's just be honest here. And the reason I think it's a good fit is because Harrison he's a more veteran player. I think he has decent strength and the ability to pick up on defensive schemes. I think he's a mature player, more veteran player. And I think with Pop's system and what he's looking for to surround their star, Wembanyama with, I think it's a great fit. I think if Harrison Ingram can become very consistent from the outside, especially that corner three, and then come pretty consistent from knocking down that three-pointer when he's open and he has his shot, I think that is going to be a great fit. And, you look at my draft class, DG was one of those guys that went in the second round, went to the Spurs, ended up having a great career. And, the second rounders, there's some times where some people come out of the second round and surprise a lot of people. And I do think that Ingram's going to have his chance. And I think he's going to, he surprised us all year, guys. I mean, he had an unbelievable year. And quite honestly, I hate that we don't have him on this year's roster, but that's not for today. But I think he's going to be a good fit. I think, a player of his magnitude and what he brings to the table, I think he's a very coachable player. And I think he'll pick up on the schemes, especially with Popovich and what he likes to do. Popovich is known for, moving without the ball and, guys sharing the ball, running the floor, spacing. And I think Harrison does that very well. So I think it's a good fit, actually. I think Harrison will have his shot there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not unheard of. It's uncommon. I think it's not even unlikely. Like you mentioned, Danny Green, second round pick, Draymond Green, second round pick, Spurs guy, Manu Ginobili was a second round pick. Hell, Nikola Jokic was a second round pick. So, I mean, like it does happen where guys really, really pan out in the second round. But it's just, here lately, I mean, hell, there's a lot of guys in the first round that don't pan out. And the draft is such a crapshoot anyway, especially in the NBA. But yeah, I think if you're going to land in the second round, Spurs is a great place to do. I think if any team could make, so there's very few shortlisted teams I would consider that probably consider all draft picks useful, right? From the standpoint of drafting players. And I'd imagine the Spurs, the Warriors are two teams that really come to mind, probably OKC at this point. But very few others. So if you're going to go somewhere, and I think it also probably speaks to Harrison Ingram, his skills and value that the Spurs took him, because I don't think, I don't think that pick, again, like an organization like that's not going to make a pick in any round without sort of careful consideration. And yeah, he's got to have all the tools to be there. So let's talk about Armando. So we'll get to Filiposwki in a second, who got drafted. First, speaking of second round picks, fell out of the first. Okay. I think we've talked a lot about guys on this show that have, we've learned to like. Draymond, one of them. Kyrie's one of them. A few other guys. JJ Redick's one of them. Kyle Filiposwki really went the other way. He kind of started acting like a little trying not to call, a little sissy or something. I can't remember. Give me a good word, but he kind of started falling out. Yeah. Benedict Arnold. That's a good one. And so he gets invited. We have this first format, where you got everybody invited to the green room, first round, and he falls out of the first round. So it doesn't even, dude, this isn't like the NFL draft where you fall out of the first round, you just sit there for a little while longer, dude. This is like, I fell out of the first round. Like, I go home. And then they have the second round in some other place. It's not even the same place. So he winds up going in the first pick of the second round to the Jazz. So he'll be there with, and we'll get more into that story, much more into that story a little bit. But Bacot's there too. And so those guys play head to head. So it's an interesting signing for the Jazz too. Yeah.
And Sleep, I'll go ahead and I'll talk about the Armando fit with the Jazz. Armando's going to have his work cut out, I'll be honest, just based off of, him signing an Exhibition 10 contract, which is basically a tryout contract. Teams have up to 6 Exhibition 10s. And what it is basically is, a contract that says, hey, you know what? We want you on the team, but we're going to wait and make that decision until the first game of the regular season. So teams must waive that player. If they decide to keep that player on the roster, that contract will be converted into a 2-way deal, which we'll talk about later. But just based off of that and that contract, I haven't seen many people turn those Exhibition 10s into anything guaranteed. And what you've got to do is you've really got to surprise a lot of people and do a lot of things that people didn't think you could do. I think some things that Armando is going to have to improve on, which he did this year, is his free throw consistency. Years prior, I think that he struggled a little bit. And I thought, maybe it could have been a little mental. I've been there. I know what it feels like to, get a little jitters once you miss one, then you start shooting it long if you shot it short and vice versa. But I think Armando, what he's going to have to do is he's going to have to be a great teammate, great person. He's going to have to show up and surprise a lot of people. There's not a lot of room, to, make some errors or do some, not be, a good teammate if he's planning on making the Jazz. Just based off their roster, they have some big men. I think, what's the kid that one of my favorite players that transferred to Auburn is there?
Oh, Walker Kessler. Yeah,
I think Walker Kessler's with the Jazz.
They're about to trade him. Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
they're literally talking about trading
him. And Kessler's had he's by far exceeded a lot of people's expectations. He's having a pretty good NBA career right now.
He's almost rookie of the year.
Yeah, but I think Armando's got his work cut out, and we'll see what happens. It's not impossible for him to make this roster, but in all reality, if I was betting, I think he'd have to go the D-League route and surprise some people there, then get picked up during the season if injuries or if he starts playing extraordinary. But I think what Armando needs to show some teams is that he can spread the court and hit, a knockdown set 3-point shot. Because I don't think Armando has the size to be classified as a 5-man in today's NBA game.
No, especially in an NBA where the 5-man's making a comeback, right? Like there's a lot of guys. Yep. I mean, look, I love Armando, but Joel Embiid in the paint, Jokic, it's a different beast. And traditionally there have been, again, some success stories on these like 2-way contract sort of situations.
Oh yeah.
But they're mostly guards, right? They're mostly guys that come in and can shoot the ball or, facilitate. It's hard to find a big man, specifically because like big men kind of stand out, right? Like you kind of know what you're going to get if a dude's, 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". Like if he's 6'8" and he's not a freak athlete, kind of nobody's going to like think that the risk is there. If the guy's 7'2" and he's not drafted, it's probably because he couldn't throw the ball in the ocean if he's standing in it, So, yeah, you're right. I think there's a long road ahead, but again, anything can happen. And I think, if I'm a player like Bacot, and we'll get to Cormac Ryan in a second, like there is literally no shame with having a long, lengthy career overseas. And I think this gives him the option, I think, to, not to talk about this as if it's a foregone conclusion, but again, this is what it is. Reality is reality. And so I think it gives him a good chance to probably get at, I'll ask you this, like professional level contacts. I mean, what do you get in the way of, okay, you run this X10, or let's say it does convert to a 2-way or something in a little, but in the G League and that sort of stuff, like what kind of relationships are built such that you can leverage professional play outside of the NBA and G League through this channel? Or is it just...
Well, Sleep, you brought up a great point. You talked about playing overseas. And I just want to say, the quality of basketball overseas, let's not forget, is high quality. And
we're about to see that in the Olympics. I got a feeling we're going to see that in the Olympics.
Yeah. And, kind of the dilemma a lot of these young kids face is it's their dream to play in the NBA. they've watched NBA players their whole life, looked up to them, and they want to be part of the association. And I understand why kids in Armando's situation try to work themselves up through the D League. And, I played half a season or a third of a season in the D League when I tried to make a comeback to the NBA, after not going overseas. And I will tell you, sometimes it's sad to see kids hang on to that dream so much that they set themselves financially in a bad situation because, by the time that, you're waived by one of these teams, this is a dilemma. Here's the dilemma. By the time you're waived by one of these teams, overseas has their roster set. They can't wait on guys to really, hey, okay, we'll wait and see. No, we've got a team. We've got to take who we can get right now. We're not going to wait on you. And plus, it's not a guarantee if you're going to fit. You never played overseas or that style. So that's a dilemma a lot of players face because D League contracts are not very lucrative, and it's a huge contract to what guys get paid in the NBA, and the travel and the life is very difficult. So I've seen a lot of players try to work themselves up and get comfortable in that setting versus going overseas and making a career. And by the way, I played overseas. I played 3 seasons in China, and the amount of respect I have for overseas players that go over there and grind it and do it for the love of the game is it took my respect to a whole new level because of what they went through. And I can tell you, my first year in China, I've always said this, it's one of my favorite years of basketball. I had so much fun over there. I was a huge part of the team. I got back to scoring. I was a focal point. All that stuff plays a factor because, in Armando's situation, in the big man situation, is physically sometimes you're not gifted enough to fit that position. And you're not going to convince a lot of teams if you're undersized and you don't have the physical attributes that a lot of players do, regardless of whether you're better than them or not. They're going to take a chance on the 7-footer that can jump and rebound a little bit versus somebody who's 6'10", 6'9", that, has had a little years and the ceiling isn't as high.
Right.
But, with that said, anything is possible. Armando, he could go out there and surprise a lot of people and, get a few years in the NBA, which I hope it happens. I wish the best for him.
Yeah, I think the one thing, and I'm trying to come up with like a similar player in my mind, and I can't off the top of my head, but just a guy that has the nose, like anybody that needs a rebounder. You know what I mean? There's like a ironclad, like coming to get boards. Like I feel like that's Armando, in the NBA.
DeJuan Blair.
He is. Yep, that's good one.
That not really comparison. They're a little bit. Armando has a little more, length, but. So guys like DeJuan Blair, they could get some years in the NBA when I played. Now, the NBA has changed so much that they've gone to smaller positionless basketball. Yeah. They like a little more diversity in somebody's game. But DeJuan Blair and guys like that, and I actually fall in that category a little bit to somewhat. I am missing a couple inches to really be considered a big man in the NBA, especially today's game. But guys like that, they could get some years in the NBA, when I was there. But now they want, it's almost like they'd rather go small than take a chance on a guy like that. That's why I think, you mentioned it, guards are in better position to make teams just because, they can lack a little size if they have the skill to really, fit what a team wants.
Just I always just kind of go to what is Armando, he's basketball height is 6'10", right? That's what they measure him at. I mean, like Kevin Durant's like 6'10", LeBron James is 6'8". Like the thing about the NBA, in my opinion, and again, this is coming from a dude that never played it, obviously, probably the farthest thing from it. Like if you could literally just like describe something that is farthest point from an NBA basketball player, God, I gotta be close to it, right? But like if you ever even just go to a game, it's amazing if you go to an NBA game and you sit close to the court. You sort of feel, and this feeling to me never goes away. I'm like, how do these guys all fit here? Like they're so big that it's like they don't even have room. Like if you see some of these like open gyms on these guys playing, you see over the summer when all these NBA guys get together and go play at like LA Fitness. And it's like, dude, there's nowhere for any of them to go because they're all so big. They're so then you have to be fast and athletic. You got to jump over guys. And look, man, Armando's a great college player. I think he's 30. He's got a real strong frame, right? But so did you, kind of thing, And at a certain point, when a dude is 3 inches taller than you, and can take the ball coast to coast off the dribble or pull up, shoot a three over top. These guys are just freaks in nature. This is not a knock. This is farthest thing from a knock. This is just these guys are in another world. So, again, we'll be watching it closely over the season or over the preseason, but hopefully, Armando can get in and get some burn and get some work and convert it. Cormac Ryan got signed by OKC. So again, another team that really seems to sort of understand the draft and understand, working with Lou Dort is the two-way convert for them. And that guy probably should have been Defensive Player of the Year this year. Wasn't, but he was up there. Great player. We were going through this before. Other two ways, Alex Caruso, and the one that really reminded me of Cormac Ryan. Oh, Duncan Robinson. All right, so I say Duncan Robinson, Miami Heat guy, shooter. I mean, that's who you hope to be if you're Cormac Ryan, right? So walk us through maybe his prospects. OKC just traded away Josh Giddey. Yeah. Not that Cormac Ryan's going to play that position, but they're moving things around a little bit. They got a great young core.
Sleep. I actually look at this signing for the exhibition 10, and I know we're saying tryout or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know what? I'm like, man, I didn't think Cormac had a chance, but I'm like,
I didn't either.
I could see him sneaking in there and making the roster for the OKC. And I say that because, look at some of their players and their culture. And I think Cormac is one of those guys that has great spirit. He seems to kind of come in like he did this year, plug and play. He's good for a team with that. And what Cormac's going to need to do is have one of those games where he just goes off and hits everything from the three. And if he can do that through tryouts, and also, guys, they're going to be playing in the summer league here in a couple weeks. So tune in. They'll get their chance. They'll get some playing time if you want to see him play. If they do work in the summer league, I could see Cormac putting himself in good position. But if I was a betting person, I think Cormac could actually have a pretty good career overseas. I think he'd be a guy who kind of fits the European model as far as understanding the offense and the flow of the game, and how to kind of go over there and work with the coaches. The coaches in overseas basketball, that's a whole new. We're not going to talk about that. That's another topic for another day. But you've got to have good chemistry with your head coach. If you don't, you're gone. But I think Cormac, right now, we'll see what he does with OKC. If he comes out there and starts hitting some open J's, he's got a little height to him, and he has a tendency to get into it defensively and lock guys down at times. We know that he can go into a shooting slump, but he's one of those guys that has the confidence. He'll shoot his ass out of it if he wants to, and we've seen him do it this year. Everyone got down on him. Then all of a sudden he comes out, bang, bang, bang. And like, oh, yeah, he's back. But if he plays like that, he's going to put himself in a good position.
I think some of the guys down their bench at OKC that, they're not heavy on 3-point shooters. I think they got a lot of guys that can shoot from anywhere on the court, but they don't have a knockdown three guy. And Cormac Ryan can move off the ball, and I think that fits very well with their scheme. They got a lot of – I'm looking at their roster. They got a lot of free agents. Aaron Wiggins and Keontae Johnson are two guys. Wiggins a guard that would probably qualify as their outside shooter. Isaiah Joe's a guard that's a good defender. Both of those guys are free agents. They just traded Giddey for Caruso, right? So they got a couple guys in the draft, of course. So this is one, and interestingly enough, that seems like – I don't know, maybe even more, because they got Gordon Hayward. He's out of there. They admitted that guy was a mistake. So in a weird way, I mean, maybe this seems like more probable or possible, I should say. But let me. Okay, so go ahead.
And OKC's got to put themselves in good position as far as a salary cap, because they have some big contracts coming up. They're going to have to pay Chet. And Cormac A lot of, also you have to look at what teams are, what they're obligated as far as salaries to pay. Can they afford to bring another guy on? That's a whole nother thing because it might not even be possible. But Cormac's not going to demand a high salary. So if you get somebody like him that really you can just pay the minimum to, and he'll come on and be part of your team, I think that's a benefit for OKC.
Well, and that's the whole thing with Kuminga is like, I mean, I get, anybody listens to this, listens to talk about NBA, like Jonathan Kuminga's gonna make like $9 million this year versus 30. Like once he gets through this, like he's up for an extension this year and like he's getting paid next year. So, people wonder like, why don't you trade this guy and try to win now and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I mean, who are you going to bring in that's going to help salvage this team, and dude's making $30-40 million. I mean, they brought Chris Paul in and they just waived him today, So anyway, a lot of things go into this that are more than often meets the eye. So say all things like best of luck to the Carolina guys here in the preseason as they get going toward the offseason. Speaking of second round picks, dude, Bronny James gets drafted by the Lakers. Everybody knew it was coming. Rich Paul said, don't draft the guy or send him to Australia. Saw a lot of people. I even saw some logic that basically said, if you're a team, hold him hostage, draft him and make him trade you. Like I saw, Legler was like, if I'm a GM, I'm drafting Bronny James. And I'm saying, and I think the way he said it was, I have your son. You can have him back for Austin Reeves. Like I'm curious as to why no one did that, right? Especially a second round pick that we just got done saying most people don't care. There's this whole nepotism argument. Okay. Like just the hate on LeBron is very real. I get, by the way, all these arguments about like, dude, there are more people deserving. Like he should have stayed in school. His statistics weren't even as good as Marcus Jordan. Like these are all sound arguments, right? There's not a whole lot I can say to like, but there's also a lot of NBA guys that are probably friends with LeBron, caveat, right? But like, there's a lot of NBA guys that are like, hey, this kid's good. I'm wondering what you make of it. Bronny got drafted 55th or something by the Lakers.
Yeah. So Sleep, first of all, I've said this on a couple group chats. Listen, the fact that LeBron said he wants nothing to do with his son getting drafted, whether the Lakers pick him or not, and also he has nothing to do with, the Lakers hiring the head coach. Get out of here. We're not dumb enough to actually believe that. Do you think that? Do you think we believe that? No. No. They hired his podcast co-host to be the head coach. Now they draft his son. And so clearly he's pretty much running this. And I was thinking to myself, if I'm a team in front of the Lakers and Rich Paul.
The Celtics, by the way, were in front of the Lakers.
If he called me and said, listen, don't draft Bronny, I'm drafting Bronny. That's just the way I am.
Hell yeah.
And I'm like, he wants to go to Australia. Australia's a great country. Be a Celtic.
Mate.
We'll see. You'd rather play for Australia than the Celtics? All right. Okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at this as, not from a father position, but more of a fan and somebody who watches the NBA and being part of it. I didn't really like the fact that LeBron had all this pull. Well, it's the way the NBA is. Mm-hmm. And I would tell you this, if I'm a team in front of the Lakers, I definitely would have drafted Bronny just based off of, how I think. But, if I had a kid and I was LeBron, I think it's pretty cool, honestly. And I hate to say that, but, to have that power, he's a superstar. He's earned everything. He's earned a lot of money. But it's that dynamic. There's going to be a lot of things at play because superstars can be, prima donnas at times. Like, if LeBron doesn't want to leave the arena for another hour, you're going to wait on that bus waiting for LeBron. I'll tell you that. Okay. That bus is going to wait. Okay. Believe me. If Bronny said, hey, wait for an hour, that bus is pulling out if he's not LeBron's son. Yeah. And I had heard this one time about, you look at Giannis and Giannis's brother plays for the Bucks. I had heard that Giannis is just a great teammate, great dude. but his brother makes the bus wait occasionally. Doesn't play. He's like, I'm going to get a massage, wait 30, 40 minutes, which I absolutely think is hilarious. And
yeah, dude.
Giannis is one of my favorite players to watch. I thought that was hilarious, but this dynamic, the father-son being on the team, it's going to be interesting. And I think it's cool from that aspect that a dad gets to play with the son in the NBA. Pretty rare. But I don't know, Sleep. I'm a little conflicted internally. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a couple of things on this, because the big thing with the nepotism is the Giannis argument, right? All these people that are claiming, oh, it's nepotism. It's like, dude, Giannis's brother don't belong on the Bucks. But here's the thing. I mean, he does take up a roster spot, but how many guys take up roster? Udonis Haslam took up a roster spot forever. Okay. Not all roster spots are worth the shit. Giannis isn't expected to play. Okay. Like he's just a known entity. It's like having his cousin or uncle or dad on the team or whatever. It doesn't matter. Right. Whereas with Bronny, the expectation is like this dude's going to pan out. So there's that element to watch. Okay. I think at the end of the day, if people could just get off of being pissed about it and just enjoy it for what it is a really cool story. I mean, the kid falls out and almost dies. Okay. You can say what you want about him not playing well in a college, like, okay, fine. Like, fair. He really didn't impress anyone, but they said that he's performed great in the summer workouts. They said that he's a McDonald's All-American. He's a good player. I don't think he's not a 5-star guy out of high school, but I think he's a 4-star guy. He's LeBron James' son, for crying out loud. Like, he's still really young. You have to expect he's going to work hard. Kid's got like a sterling reputation. You're not going to get any sort of off the court issues from him. And, I think if you're the NBA, you got to like this story, dude. It's like a father. I mean, the greatest player, arguably, in a lot of people's mind, one of the greatest players that's ever lived, right? He's got his son on the team. And I mean, but here's the key for me. Yes, LeBron has sway. And of course, that's the reason why JJ Redick is there. That's the reason why Bronny James is there. That's the reason why Darvin Ham's not there, and 10,000 other coaches I ever played for. But what he's just done within the last day or two is opt out of a $40-some million, $50-some million payday next year. And he's willing to restructure. So the team, and granted, he's kind of pulling a Tom Brady move, right? Like, hey, I'm willing to take less so you can build a team around me. All I ask, essentially, this is how I put it together in my head. All I ask is you hire JJ, my co-host. I mean, that's what you would do. Somebody called you up. If Michael Jordan called you up right now and was like, hey, you come back for the Hornets. I mean, I would pretty much fully expect you to say, dude, you got to let SleepHawk coach. And then, duh. And there's that. What the fuck was I saying? What was I saying? About
you talked about him opting out, and then
so he's opting out, and so I think he's giving as well, right? Like, this isn't just hey, me. This is, hey man, I will make. Now if they don't go out and get anybody, he's going to max out. He's going to break him over the coals. But for all intents and purposes, he's backing down so they can go get Klay Thompson or some of these other guys to like fill the void they need to get over the hump in the playoffs this year. So it's not all just, him doing what he quote unquote wants. I definitely think that, like, I think at the end of the day, he just knows better than everybody else does, like, what it's going to take to win. And like, in order to make that happen, he's basically the GM, dude.
Yeah. Sleep. That is an absolutely amazing point you just brought up about him maybe going to the Lakers and saying, hey, listen, I'll opt out. I'll take a cut. Got to draft my son and hire JJ. I wonder if that happened. And, it's sometimes you bring ideas to the table that are just absolutely genius. And I actually didn't even think about that. Well, but that is a great point.
If you get that call, I mean, I could, maybe not the coach, the GM.
Yeah. We'll have to have him on the podcast, see if that happened. And the last point is, And you talked about Giannis and his brother. I actually played with my brother in Indy for the Pacers, and that was actually a really cool experience. Growing up playing basketball with my brother, putting in a lot of work, playing on the same team all through high school. He's one of my all-time favorite teammates, super competitive. Obviously, the brother bond had a huge impact on that as well. But I always love looking back on those memories of us playing together at the Pacers. I thought it was so cool. So that was a great point as well. Yeah, I mean, it's just a great story. I mean, it just speaks to it just really adds to the mystique of LeBron James. I mean, he's as old as he is, and it's funny because they asked his other kid, Bryce, here, because I think Bryce is the one that's going to be better. And they're like, "Hey, is your dad going to play with you?" And he's like, "Nah, he'll be 42." I'm like, "Well, he ain't showing any signs of slowing down to me." Like, it'd be all right, man. I never know. Yeah, Bryce can hoop, is what I've heard.
The kid looks pretty solid. So, all right, on to a few other things before we get out of here. The Jared McCain thing. This is the kid from Duke, guard, paints his fingernails, does the TikToks and all this sort of stuff. He gets drafted by, we don't have to spend a ton of time on this. Yeah. He gets drafted by Philly, which is an interesting landing spot because ESPN was just getting roasted online because when he got drafted, they showed no highlights, just him dancing and painting his fingernails. And now he's in Philadelphia, which is anything but what his nickname would suggest. It is not an easy place to cut your teeth, I would imagine, in the NBA. So as soon as he starts, like, those guys go out there and imagine if Joel Embiid or something leaves, and those dudes are 500 around the All-Star break, and this dude's making TikToks. Dude, he's going to be getting booed at home. So, I don't know, man. I just thought, look, I think the kid is – I'm going to say it, man. I don't think he's that good. And that's not a Duke thing. I don't think that kid is that good. I really don't. I thought this was one of the worst picks in the draft.
I second that. I'm not the biggest Jared McCain fan as it is coming from Duke. It's really tough for me to like that. But
yeah,
the whole, the painting the nails and stuff, it could be, that's a me problem, but I'm old school. That would never fly where, growing up in the country, you would get absolutely destroyed. Yeah. And, and also the one thing, Sleep, is I'm not sure, the OKC, the Utah Jazz, like that audience too, they would, that would be, I would be interested to see how well that is, taken in those settings. But
that's a good point.
I don't know. I just don't think that
other cities in the NBA that probably aren't that accustomed to it.
It seems like he should have ended up in Portland, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But, I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. I mean, go bet on him to win Rookie of the Year. You'll probably win. Kyle Filiposwki, and we'll end on this because this is a weird story. All right, so Kyle Filiposwki opts into the draft. Last year, I think if he goes in a better draft, like I think he had, some some sway, like he was some value as a draft pick.
Yeah.
This year he's in the green room, falls out of the first round, gets drafted by the Jazz, which becomes even more interesting once you hear the story. Basically, he's alienated from his parents, allegedly, because he's dating this woman who's 28 years old and he's 20, I think. And I guess she's like this devout Mormon or something. I'll be honest, I don't know anything about that kind of religion except they like look for gold plates buried in the desert somewhere. And they think, the whole world's like 180 years old or something crazy, right? Martin Luther type stuff. But of course, there's a lot of Mormons in Salt Lake City. And like this whole story is just wild. Yeah. And so what I actually read on was that teams caught wind of it and were afraid. And so then it just makes even more sense that, because dude, let's face it, I don't like Kyle Filiposwki I like Kyle Filiposwki about as much as I like Grayson Allen or you name the other, Duke guys that we don't like. But there are probably worse players that got drafted in the first round in a very, very weak draft. So it was just very strange because I think too, to get invited, like they basically ask all the GMs like, hey, is this guy going to get drafted in the first round? And most of them are like, yeah. so then he doesn't. So I don't know, man. I'm curious to know what you think of this story because I can't wait. This is like WNBA level drama right here.
So this to me is mind blowing. And, first of all, my overall thought of the whole situation is sad. Okay. It's very sad. But I'll touch on that here in a minute. First of all, Kyle Filiposwki was a projected lottery pick. You don't get invited to the green room unless, there's some potential interest from those top teams with those top picks. So clearly he had interest from teams. And all the mock drafts had him high pick too. They had him going in the lottery, most of them, or, mid-teens. But I will tell you this rumor and what's going on spread throughout the NBA very quickly because of how odd this situation is. And if I'm a GM and I'm an executive, this absolutely has weight. And and the reason I say that, Kyle Filiposwki doesn't have the talent for teams to ignore that situation. Let's say if he was a Zion or somebody who had a huge high ceiling, you might bypass it. Not Filiposwki, even though he was probably the best inside-outside threat in college last year, and he's apparently a 7-footer too, which is more head-scratching. How much money did his girlfriend cost him on draft night? And a lot, Sleep. And, I will say a first-round contract is drastically different, especially a lottery pick, than a second round. And the reason why I think this is such a sad situation is because you need your family and you need your family support whenever you're going through transitions like this. Now, especially girlfriends, apparently they're engaged, planning on getting married in August. And the family says that she was a babysitter that started grooming him since high school to be, his husband and convert him to being a Mormon, and his family had a huge issue with that, and Filiposwki cut him off. There's not a bigger red flag than probably what she put Kyle through. And, I hope that, somehow he mends this with his family and their relationship. And regardless of him going to Duke or not, bad family dynamics, you cannot separate that from the court. That has a huge impact on a kid, especially somebody who's 20, not talking to his family, totally ignore them. That carries a lot of emotional damage. And listen, listeners, we are going to reach out to Filiposwki's brother and invite him on SleepHawk Worldwide. That is a guarantee. Whether he comes on here or not, that's a different story. But we're going to ask him. We need some clarification as to what is really going on. And it is sad because, I know he's a Dookie, but, it's all basketball stuff. This is life stuff. You need your family.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And the one thing I'll say is this hasn't actually come from like anything super, super, like, it's not like, 60 Minutes is onto this thing yet, but, there's definitely something up there with him falling as far as he did. In the grooming situation, then there's this 8-year difference, and it's like, okay, they've been dating since high school. Well, that puts her at like, adult and him a minor. So anyway, look, you can put 2 and 2 together however you want, and it ain't gonna make 6. So I don't know. Landed in the right spot, that's for sure. There was something else I was going to say about it. Go ahead.
If you're going to do that, she better be supermodel hot. And, I look at her like, oh, okay, she's attractive.
Yeah.
She's not the supermodel hot to be. She doesn't like, that's not the one that really like, makes me
son, you're about to be in the NBA, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay. You're about to be a superstar. All right. You're about to see what's out there for you. All the gold plates you want, pal.
One of my favorite questions I ever asked a teammate, I said, he said, I only date. He told me one time I was in the locker room, we were talking, and one of my teammates said, I only date models. I said, what? You only date? And I thought it was so funny to me that he said that. And I was like, well, buddy, you are far from attractive. Do you think they're dating you for your looks? No. But that always I always laughed at. I had a teammate that told me they only date models one time. And I thought it was so funny.
He probably knew just as well as you did while they're dating him. Oh, boy. Well, that's all for today, kids. Go check out our YouTube channel. Go check out Jimmy's Famous Seafood. You got anything else, Big Hawk?
Stay safe.
Stay safe out there, guys.